I had been driving for what seemed like hours, with the road stretching endlessly in front of me, empty and quiet, the only sounds being the hum of my engine and the breeze flowing through the open window. I wasn't in any hurry, but I wasn't going slow either. Maybe I was simply lost in my thoughts, trying to escape the stress of my day. Work, life, the constant grind, the thought of the weekend ahead, perhaps spent with friends or by myself, felt far off and insignificant. Then I saw the flashing lights. At first, I thought I was imagining it. I checked my rearview mirror, but there it was again, the persistent glowing red and blue. The police car was pulling me over. I muttered a curse, tapping my fingers on the wheel, already feeling frustrated. I didn't think I had been speeding, but I knew how easily the police could pull you over for anything, as though they had a sixth sense for catching you at just the wrong moment. I pulled over to the side, my heart beating a little faster, my palms growing sweaty. I wasn't scared, but there was something about being stopped by the police that always made you second guess yourself, even when you knew you hadn't done anything wrong. I turned off the engine and sat still for a moment, trying to calm myself. I checked the mirror again, and I saw her. She was walking toward me now, tall and assured, with a posture that radiated authority. Her uniform was tidy, and her expression was calm, but there was something in her gaze that made me feel like I had done something much worse than just speeding. I rolled the window down, trying to steady my voice, even though my heart was still racing. "Is there a problem, officer?" I asked, already knowing the answer. She didn't smile, but her eyes locked onto mine for a moment longer than expected. Sharp, assessing. I could tell she wasn't in a rush. She paused before answering, almost as if she were studying me. "Do you know why I stopped you?" Her voice was firm, though not unkind. I shook my head. "Honestly, no, officer. I thought I was driving fine." She nodded slowly, looking down at her notepad, then scribbling something. "You were going 15 miles over the speed limit. It's dangerous to speed on these roads." I sighed and nodded, my mind racing. 15 miles over? I hadn't even realized. I quickly apologized, trying to seem more composed than I felt. "Sorry, I didn't notice. I wasn't paying attention," I said, hoping to sound sincere, though the excuse felt weak. She didn't respond right away, just wrote more notes in her pad. I could tell she wasn't in any rush to let me go. She was just doing her job, but I could feel the tension hanging in the air. I glanced at her again. She looked professional, but there was something else, something that made me feel uneasy. I couldn't put my finger on it at first, but I felt it in the heat rising in my neck. "Stay right here," she finally said, stepping back toward her patrol car. I watched her walk away, the sound of her boots clicking on the pavement, and for a moment I felt foolish. What was it about her? Why did I feel this strange pull? It wasn't like I had never dealt with a police officer before, but there was something different about her. Her movement, her confidence. It was all so assured. A few minutes later, she returned to my car, holding the ticket in one hand. She handed it to me, her eyes meeting mine once more. The air between us felt heavy, almost charged. She seemed unfazed, like it was just another routine stop. I took the ticket from her, glancing at the fine printed on the front, thinking about how much it would cost. Something on the back of the ticket caught my eye. A number, written hastily, almost like it had been meant for me. I looked back up at her, wondering if I had imagined it. Was it a mistake, or was it for me? She didn't seem to notice that I had turned the ticket over. She was already walking back to her car, leaving me staring at the number in my hand. I couldn't believe it. Why would she leave me her number? Was this a joke? Did she do this with everyone? It didn't make sense. Yet here I was, still holding the ticket, unsure of what to do. I looked up, expecting to see her watching, but she was already getting into her car, waving as she drove away. My heart skipped a beat as she disappeared, and I was left there alone, the ticket and her number burning in my hand. I shook my head, trying to shake off the oddness of the situation. I started the car and drove off, trying to focus on the road, but the number kept flashing in my mind. Was this real? Was she serious? Should I call? The rest of the drive home felt like a blur, my mind stuck on the ticket, the number, and her. I tried to convince myself it wasn't a big deal, that I should just forget it, but somehow I knew I wouldn't. I couldn't stop thinking about it. When I got home, I parked and sat there for a while, staring at the ticket. The number burned into my mind. Should I call? Was it a mistake? I glanced at my phone, almost typing the number, but then hesitated. I leaned back in my seat, trying to figure it all out. Was I overthinking this? Or was this some kind of sign? Eventually, I put the ticket down, got out of the car, and walked inside. I had no idea what to do, but one thing was certain. I wasn't going to forget about this. Not yet. Not until I figured it out. I spent the next few hours trying to push it out of my mind. After a long day, I just wanted to relax and forget everything. I tossed the ticket on the kitchen counter, trying to distract myself with something, anything. But every time I saw it, every time the number caught my eye, I couldn't stop thinking about her. Her voice, that confident tone when she spoke to me. I could still feel her gaze when she handed me the ticket, lingering long after she was gone. Why had she given me her number? Was it a joke, or was she genuinely interested? The more I thought about it, the more confused I became. I knew I should let it go. After all, she was a police officer. What kind of relationship could come from something like this? There was no real reason to believe it was anything more than a random act on her part. But still, the thought of calling her lingered. I tried to focus on other things, but when the evening came and I found myself alone, I realized I was still thinking about it. At around 9 p.m., I grabbed my phone. I stared at it for a moment, my finger hovering over the keypad. Part of me wanted to throw the phone across the room and forget this ever happened. But another part, the part I couldn't ignore, was already dialing the number. My heart raced as the call connected. My fingers trembled slightly, and I could hear my own breath in my ears. It was strange, calling a stranger, especially a police officer. The phone rang twice before she picked up. Hello? Her voice was warm and smooth, but there was something in it that made my stomach tighten. I wasn't sure what I had expected, but this wasn't it. There was no formality, no professionalism, just her voice. The woman I had been thinking about for hours. I froze for a moment, unsure of what to say. This was it. I had actually done it. Hi, I finally stammered. Is this Officer Miller? There was a slight pause before she replied, It is. Who is this? A wave of nerves hit me, and I realized I had no idea what to say next. I had never done anything like this before. Uh, it's me. The guy you pulled over earlier today, I said, my voice much smaller than it had been before. The speeding ticket. I heard a small laugh on the other end, and I could tell she was smiling. Oh, I remember you. My heart skipped a beat. I didn't know if that was a good or bad thing, but hearing her say that made me feel a little more at ease. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad. Yeah, I just didn't know if you meant to leave your number on the back of the ticket, I said, fumbling with my words. I just thought it was kind of unexpected. Another pause. The silence stretched on, feeling like forever. Then she spoke, her voice now more relaxed, with a hint of amusement. I thought you wouldn't call me, she said softly, almost teasing. I felt my face flush. I wasn't sure if it was the surprise of her response or the way she said it, but suddenly I felt like I was way out of my depth. I had been trying to play it cool, but now I was the one on the receiving end of that nervous energy I'd been feeling earlier. Her tone was playful, but it felt genuine. I wasn't sure if I should, I admitted, rubbing the back of my neck nervously. But here I am. She laughed softly, and the sound made something tighten in my chest. It was a good laugh, the kind that put you at ease, but also made you a little intrigued. I'm glad you called. I wasn't sure if you would. There was a long pause after that, and I wasn't sure where to go from there. I had called, but now what? Why had she given me her number? Was this just a friendly gesture, or was there more to it? So, I began, trying to regain some composure. What happens now? She seemed to think for a moment before answering. Well, now we talk and see where it goes. My mind raced. See where it goes. What did that even mean? Was she really interested, or was she just being friendly? I wasn't entirely certain, but the thought of talking to her more, of actually getting to know her, sent a thrill through me. We spent the next hour on the phone, chatting about all sorts of things. The conversation began a little awkwardly, but as time passed, it flowed more naturally. We discussed our daily routines, our work, and little moments that made us laugh. It felt incredibly natural, as if we had known each other for ages, despite having been strangers just hours earlier. Before I realized it, I was glancing at the clock, surprised at how late it had gotten. The conversation had flown by, and I couldn't believe how much I had enjoyed it. I should probably let you go, she said, her voice a little softer now. But I'm glad you called. It's been nice. I'm glad you gave me your number, I replied, without thinking, my heart skipping a beat when I realized what I'd just said. But she laughed, and suddenly everything felt fine again. Well, it's not every day I give my number to a guy I pulled over, she said. But you seem interesting. Interesting, I repeated, with a smile. That's one way to put it. Yeah, she responded, a playful tone in her voice. We'll see if I change my mind. After saying our goodbyes, I hung up the phone, my heart still racing. It felt like something was just beginning between us, though I had no idea where it would lead. And that uncertainty was the exciting part. The following days passed in a blur. After our first phone call, I couldn't stop thinking about Officer Miller. Every time I closed my eyes, her voice echoed in my head. It was a strange sensation, and while I tried to focus on my routine, I found it impossible not to keep coming back to that conversation. She had said, "We'll see where it goes." And despite my efforts to ignore it, I couldn't help but wonder where this might lead. I continued going through my usual routine, getting up for work, handling my tasks, but her number stayed in my thoughts, like a constant nagging presence. It was clear that this wasn't a one-time thing. I wasn't just curious, I was intrigued. On the fourth day after our call, I received a message from her. It was simple. "Hey, how's your day going?" My heart skipped a beat. I wasn't sure why, but the fact that she was reaching out first made me feel like I was stepping into uncharted territory. I quickly replied, hoping not to sound too eager. "Good, just getting through work. How about you?" She responded quickly, and before long, we were back to our easy rhythm. We exchanged messages throughout the day, small updates, random thoughts, conversations that felt effortless, like we had known each other for a long time, even though we hadn't met in person. Then, a few hours later, she sent a message that made my stomach flip. "I'm off work tonight. What do you say we meet up?" I stared at the screen, feeling a mix of excitement and nerves. My first instinct was to say yes without hesitation, but I found myself pausing. This was real now. This wasn't just a phone call or a passing moment. It was the first step toward something that could actually become something more. As thrilling as that thought was, it was also a bit terrifying. After taking a deep breath, I typed back, "I'd like that. Where do you want to meet?" A few moments later, she replied, and I couldn't help but smile. "There's a small cafe downtown. I'll be there at 7. See you then." I stared at the message, feeling a rush of anticipation. I didn't know what to expect, but the idea of seeing her in person, actually meeting her after all our conversations, was enough to make my heart race. I spent the next few hours getting ready, ensuring I looked presentable, maybe even a little more polished than usual. I was nervous, not just because this was a date, but because it was with a police officer, the one who had pulled me over, the one who had left her number on a speeding ticket. I still wasn't sure what I had gotten myself into, but I was about to find out. When I walked into the cafe, I immediately scanned the room. It wasn't hard to spot her. She was sitting by the window, dressed casually in a leather jacket and jeans. But even in something so simple, she stood out. There was something about her that made her impossible to ignore. I stood there for a moment, unsure whether to approach or just admire the view from a distance. Then she looked up, and our eyes met. The smile she gave me was warm and genuine, and instantly all the nerves I had melted away. I walked over to her table, my heart pounding in my chest. "You look amazing," I said, feeling a little awkward as I pulled out the chair and sat down. She laughed softly, and the sound made me relax a little. Thanks. You look pretty good yourself. There was a brief, comfortable silence before I spoke again. So, this is a little surreal, right? Surreal? She raised an eyebrow. I thought this was the part where we stop being awkward and start having fun. I smiled, feeling the tension ease. Right. Let's do that. We spent the next few hours talking, really talking. The small talk we had become accustomed to through texts and phone calls was replaced by real, face-to-face conversation. She told me more about her job, the crazy stories from her time on the force, and her life outside of work. I shared my own stories, my ambitions, my small victories and failures. It felt like we had already built a connection, even though this was our first time meeting in person. The conversation flowed easily, and with every word, I found myself more and more at ease around her. There was something so natural about her presence, something that made me feel like I could tell her anything without fear of judgment. At one point, she leaned forward, her eyes locking with mine. So how's this been for you? The whole phone number on the back of a ticket thing? I let out a soft laugh, running a hand through my hair. Honestly, I'm still processing it. It's not something you expect. She smiled, the corners of her lips curving just slightly. I can imagine, but I'm glad you called. A warmth spread through me. She was glad I called, and the more we talked, the more I realized how much I enjoyed her company. She was confident, funny, and incredibly easy to talk to. But there was also something deeper there, something I couldn't quite pinpoint. It wasn't just surface-level attraction, it was something more. The evening passed in a blur, and before I knew it, it was almost 10 p.m. I glanced at my phone and realized how late it had gotten. Well, I should probably get going, I said reluctantly. I've got work tomorrow. She nodded, though there was a slight hesitation in her eyes. Me too. We stood up together, and she pulled on her jacket. I walked with her to the door, my thoughts racing. This had been everything I had hoped for, and more. She was even more amazing in person than I had imagined. So I'll see you again? I asked, my voice a little uncertain. She gave me a playful look. You think you can handle it? I chuckled, feeling more at ease than I had all evening. I'm sure I can. She smiled and handed me a small piece of paper. Well, just in case you forget, call me sometime. I took the paper, my heart racing. This was it. This was the moment I had been waiting for. As I walked back to my car, I couldn't help but think that maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something real. The next few days were a whirlwind. After that unforgettable evening at the cafe, I couldn't stop thinking about Officer Miller. Her smile, the way her eyes lit up when she laughed, the way she listened to me like I was the only person in the room. Everything about her stayed with me. We'd exchanged numbers at the end of the night, and the next morning I found myself staring at my phone, wondering when I should text her again. It felt a little ridiculous, but I didn't want to seem too eager. So I waited. I gave it a few hours before finally sending a message, keeping it casual. Hey, I had a great time last night. Hope you're having a good day. I hit send before I could second guess myself. My nerves returned, but I forced myself to focus on something else. After all, I couldn't let myself get consumed by one message, right? A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. Her reply was almost instant. I had a great time too. It was really nice to finally meet you. Let's do it again soon. A small smile spread across my face. She had reached out first this time. There was something reassuring about that. It made me feel like I wasn't the only one invested in whatever this was becoming. I replied quickly, feeling more confident. Definitely. How about dinner this weekend? She replied almost immediately. Sounds perfect. And just like that, we had plans. The following weekend arrived faster than expected, and I found myself standing in front of the same cafe, waiting for her. I was early, trying not to seem too eager, but the nerves were still there. As the minutes ticked by, I found myself pacing, glancing at my phone every few seconds. What if this was all a mistake? What if I was reading too much into everything? I couldn't help but think back to that night, how we connected so effortlessly, but this time felt different. This was a date, and it seemed like it could lead to something serious. Finally, she arrived, walking in with the same confident stride. My heart skipped a beat. She looked incredible, as always, dressed casually, but with a touch of elegance. She had this effortless charm that seemed to draw people in without even trying. When she saw me, she smiled, and I felt a wave of relief wash over me. She seemed genuinely happy to see me. Hey, I greeted her, standing up. You look amazing. Thanks, she said, returning the compliment. You don't look so bad yourself. We both laughed, and the awkward tension I had been feeling slowly faded as we sat down together. The conversation started easily, just like last time. We talked about everything and nothing, sharing more about our lives, our past experiences, and our hopes for the future. It wasn't just small talk. It was deep, real conversation, the kind that made me feel like we were getting to know each other in a way that was rare. I realized how at ease I felt around her. It was as if we had known each other for years, not just a few days. With every word she spoke, I found myself becoming more attracted to her. It wasn't just her looks or her confidence, but the way she made me feel heard, understood, and acknowledged. At one point, she leaned back in her chair, gazing at me with a playful smile. So, what's the real reason you gave me your number? She asked. I chuckled, slightly surprised. I don't know. Maybe I thought you were interesting, I replied. She raised an eyebrow, clearly amused. Interesting? Is that all you've got? I shrugged, feeling a bit embarrassed. Well, I guess it's more than that. It's just the way you carry yourself. There's something about you. She smiled gently, and for a brief moment, everything around us seemed to fade away. I'm glad you called me, she said, her voice softer, almost intimate. I've been thinking about you too. That simple confession made my chest tighten. It was the first time she had said something like that out loud, and hearing it felt significant. I wasn't sure where this was going, but I knew I wanted to find out. As the night went on, I realized how much I was enjoying her company. It wasn't just the conversation or the bond we were forming, it was the way she made me feel at ease. There was no pressure, no pretense. She accepted me as I was, flaws and all, and that made everything feel so much simpler. As the evening drew to a close, we stood up to leave. Time had flown by, and I wasn't ready for it to end. I had a really great time, I said as we walked to the door. Me too, she replied, smiling warmly. I'm glad we did this. I smiled back. Same here. She paused at the door, looking up at me with a softer expression. So, what happens next? She asked. I wasn't sure how to respond at first. This was uncharted territory for me. I had never been in a situation like this before, where everything felt so natural, yet so unfamiliar. But as I looked at her, I realized I didn't need to have all the answers. I think we just see where this goes, I said, unsure but confident in my words. She nodded slowly, her smile widening. I like that idea. We stepped out into the cool evening air together, side by side. It felt like the beginning of something new, something exciting. As I walked her to her car, I couldn't help but feel that this might be the start of something special. It had been a few weeks since that unforgettable dinner, and the days spent with Officer Miller, Avery, had been nothing short of a whirlwind. Each moment with her seemed to add another layer to what was quickly becoming something undeniable between us. We had seen each other more times than I could count by now, and with every encounter, it felt like we were building something real, something meaningful. I never imagined that a relationship like this would grow out of a simple speeding ticket. But life had a funny way of surprising you. Avery wasn't like anyone I had met before. She was strong, confident, with a fire in her eyes that made me want to get even closer. But what made it even more special was how she made me feel. She listened, she understood, and she genuinely cared. I could tell she was cautious, maybe even skeptical about getting too close, but something told me she was ready to take the leap, and I was more than ready to join her. One evening, just a few days after a light-hearted but meaningful text exchange about everything from work to our favorite movies, I decided to call her again. There was something in the air that night. It felt different, as if the night itself was calling for something bigger. I stared at my phone for a moment, hesitating. As much as we'd talked, I still wasn't entirely sure where we stood. But that was part of the excitement, wasn't it? The unknown, the thrill of discovering something new. I dialed her number and waited for her to pick up, the soft ringtone echoing in my apartment, my heart racing with anticipation. Hey, it's me, I said when she answered, trying to sound casual, though my heart was pounding more than usual. Hey you, she responded warmly, What's up? I couldn't help but smile at how easy it was to talk to her, even after everything that had happened between us. The moments we had shared, the things we'd said, had only deepened my feelings for her. I took a breath, wanting to get straight to the point. I've been thinking about you, I said, my words coming out more vulnerable than I expected. I want to see you again. I mean, I want this. I want us. There was a moment of silence, and I held my breath, wondering if I had said the wrong thing, if I was moving too quickly. But then I heard her voice again, softer than before. I was hoping you'd say that, she said, and my heart soared with relief. I've been thinking about this too, about us. A weight lifted off my chest as the tension between us melted away. It was like we were both on the same page now, and neither of us needed to pretend. I don't want to wait anymore, she continued. Let's make this real, okay? I smiled, my hand shaking slightly with excitement. Let's. The next few weeks flew by, and before I knew it, things between us were stronger than ever. We were no longer just two people who had met under strange circumstances. We were two people who genuinely cared about each other, and it felt incredible, really incredible. Avery had become my safe space, my place of peace, even amidst the chaos of the world outside. We spent more and more time together, whether it was grabbing coffee in the mornings or going on long walks around the city after work. We spent hours talking about everything and nothing, sometimes laughing until our sides hurt. It wasn't just the fun moments that bonded us, though. It was the quiet ones, too. The moments when we simply sat in silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was peaceful. One afternoon, as we sat in the park watching the sunset, she turned to me with a thoughtful look. You know, she began, I don't usually do this. I don't let people in so easily. She paused, searching for the right words. But with you, it's different. I can't explain it. You've been a breath of fresh air. I looked at her, warmth spreading through me. I understood exactly what she meant. This was different. Everything about it felt different, in the best possible way. I feel the same way, I replied honestly. I don't know what it is, but I feel like I've known you forever. Avery smiled, and for a moment, everything felt perfect. The sun was dipping below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the park, and it felt like time had slowed down just for us. Maybe we've been waiting for each other all along, she said softly. I didn't need to say anything more. The truth was in her words, and in the way I felt when she was around. The more I got to know her, the more I realized I couldn't imagine my life without her. There was no need for grand gestures or elaborate speeches. All I needed to do was be with her. That evening, we went to dinner at a small Italian restaurant, our favorite place. It was quiet, cozy, the kind of spot where you could truly be yourself. As we sat across from each other, laughing and enjoying our meal, I couldn't help but think about how far we'd come. From that first awkward encounter when she pulled me over for speeding to the way she left her number on the back of the ticket. Every moment had led us to this point, and it felt like everything had aligned perfectly. Now, here we were, just two people ready to take on whatever came next. "I'm really glad we did this," I said, looking at her sincerely. "I'm glad we met." She smiled, her eyes shining with affection. "Me too." From that night on, things only continued to grow. We didn't rush anything, but we didn't hold back either. There was no more uncertainty, no more hesitation. It felt like we had found something real, something worth fighting for. In the weeks that followed, I realized that sometimes life took you on unexpected journeys. It had led me to Avery, and in return, I had found something I didn't even know I was looking for. Love. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours, and that was enough.